a picture for T-shirts, but Hillary's trying to censor us. They've got no-fly zones now, saying we can't fly planes for the entire time. This has never been done before. That story's on InfoWars. We're just going to fly them other places, other times, the days before, right after. We're gonna have trucks now in both cities driving around. Let's see them. We're mainly shifting to trucks with the money we're spending. That say Hillary for prison. Some evidence shows it hits even more people. And now we're going to finance planes other parts of the country after this. We're just going to do like 10 times what we were now. Because they're afraid of it for a reason. They know this has been the #1 search term the last few weeks. Before that, before Pokemon Go or whatever, or Brexit, that's our listeners doing that. So when they get the Hillary for Prison shirt at InfoWarsStore.com, they then are breaking that matrix and physically are going to meet like-minded people. They're going to find other info warriors. This is what they don't want you to do. They want to intimidate you to not be politically involved because it's not even so much about who you're voting for. It's about meeting the like-minded people and creating communities of thought that transcend whether the candidate sells us out or not.
That's right. And, the old saying, united we stand, divided we fall. And, folks, all of this stuff about the shooting of blacks and whites and stuff, it's all a way to get us, separate us apart. Clearly, most of these people who did the shootings are Manchurian candidates. I'm going to repeat that. Clearly, most of the people who do these shootings are Manchurian candidates. We should not bite the bait that they're putting out in front of us. What we need to do is focus on what is good and is right and creating community and becoming aware. And this is a life and death situation. And just as the Sons of Liberty in 1773, 1774, they would meet in private in small little groups and talk about the concepts of a free country, and they were risking their lives.
Just envisioning and over time built the energy, the connections, and everything that kept manifesting. But there's all this delusion about you just thinking it manifests. No, you have to take the action in this dimension, and then that's what builds it. That's science, folks. All right, David Knight coming up. Thank you so much, George. David Knight coming up. Stay with us.
Welcome to the 4th hour of the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight on this Wednesday, July 13th, 2016. I have a lot of interesting news today. Of course, we have the new Jason Bourne movie that's about to come to American theaters. I propose they call it the Bourne Hypocrisy, because that's what we're seeing with Matt Damon as he was pushing its initial premiere in Australia. He called for the kind of gun confiscation that they did in Australia. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the police situation, and I think we need to look at what the real solution is. They always create a problem, and they always have a solution that they're going to force upon us. And, of course, that solution is more federalization, more militarization. And I say more because you have to understand our police are already highly federalized, highly militarized. And so we're going to talk about what the real solution is. We've got an article that's very good on Infowars.com today talking about privatization of the police. I think the solution is to privatize, not to federalize. How do we get control locally of our police? We don't want to have even less control, folks, and that's what's going to happen if it gets moved to Washington. For some reason, and I don't understand why it is. I mean, we can go back and look at it. Perhaps it's because of the Civil War and the perception that the federal government is going to take care of them because they ended slavery. Many in the black community always look to the federal government to protect them. And that simply isn't the case. They have been abused. We've talked about that for a long time. And, of course, they're taking the same tactics and strategies that they've used to abuse the black community in the inner cities, that they've used to abuse Indians on the reservation. They're going to be applying that to everybody. And it's just amazing to me, the more times I think about it, the fact that we've got libertarian economists like Charles Murray, who wrote Losing Ground back in the 1980s to explain to people how the welfare system, which is what the Indian reservations were, it basically locked them down, confined them, and told them that, you can't do anything, but don't worry, we'll give you some food here while we keep you essentially in the prison, okay? That's a model, by the way, folks, for Agenda 21, okay? Agenda 21 is simply the Indian reservation applied to the entire population. And we see that now happening throughout the rural areas, throughout the western lands with the movements of the other BLM, the Bureau of Land Management. We got a couple of BLMs. Both of them are a trap, as the general would say. But, what they did was they used welfare and it's destroyed the black family, and they saw that was very effective. So they want to apply that to the rest of us. And we've seen ways that they've been sneaking this in, but now they're getting more overt about it. You know, one of the things that always bothered me about the fair tax was the idea that everybody was going to get a check from the government. And it's like, I'm sorry, can't go there. Can't go there. That's you are conditioning people for a handout. And I don't care what your rationalization is, okay, that is a non sequitur. Right there, you got to stop. You're going to start handing out checks to people. The fair tax is just a non-starter for me. Okay, can't go there. But now they're getting more overt about that. Okay, the same people, a lot of the same people who are pushing the fair tax, and even Charles Murray, who wrote a book that was the basis of the so-called welfare reforms that they said they were going to do, but they didn't really do under the Reagan administration. Losing Ground. Charles Murray, who wrote the book Losing Ground, is now pushing the idea of a universal basic income. And this is something that is a global movement. We have an American branch here, but this is something that is a global movement by the globalist government. They understand that the time is very short until we lose more than 50% of the jobs that are out there. People are going to be replaced at every level by robots. It is both horizontal and vertical. It's going to cut across all industries, and it's going to cut across every level of every industry. People are going to be replaced by robots. They're going to be replaced by artificial intelligence. What are they going to do? They're not going to be very happy if they don't have a job and they don't have income. So they're going to pacify us and soft kill us. They will soft kill our spirit, and they will soft kill our body. And the way they do the soft kill of our spirit is by the universal basic income. And now you've got people like Charles Murray, who knows, because he wrote the book, how harmful welfare is, proposing welfare for everybody to pacify the precariat, the people who are in a precarious position, that proletariat, because it's all about class warfare for them. And, of course, in America, they can't really seize on the kind of class stratification that they could in Europe, so they seize upon racialism. That's what Bill Ayers and his buddies, who were mentors to Obama, who infiltrated the university and education systems to push their white privilege nonsense. And we've got a story about that. It's up on Infowars.com. Indoctrination. Watch a 14-year-old perform a white boy privilege poem. This is a class that he's taken. So we're going to cover that as well. Now, before we get to the news, a couple of real quick stand-along stories here. An update to Pokemon Go. Maybe we should call it Pokemon Spy. Okay, because I pointed out when I looked at this, the thing that bothers me about this is the fact that our government, the fastest growing part of our intelligence state, our security surveillance state, is geospatial intelligence. And this thing is just reeking of it. The story that Kit Daniels put up earlier in the week, pointing out the connections of the guy who created this to the CIA's venture capital company, InQtel, how they've been connected in the past. Makes you wonder if there's a connection here in this as well. Especially, we have an update. Here's from a Daily Mail update. Pokemon Go, the company that created that, releases an update that fixes the iPhone security gaffe. They say it's a security gaffe. But it gave the game access to everything in your Google accounts. It requires massive permissions, access to all of your computer, and it's just a gaffe. It was just an error, but they're going to fix that until they can hide it better, folks. Okay, that's what's really concerns me about this, and the idea that everybody is just we are all playing games. And they are deadly serious. Everything that they are focused on is to get intelligence from your activity, to map you physically, politically, religiously. They want to know everything about you, control you in a kind of pre-crime minority report environment. They call it human domain analytics. I believe that was what was truly behind the Jade Helm thing, mastering the human domain. That's what that's truly about. At the same time that was coming out, we had the guy who had been head of special forces said, we need to not think so much about special forces as kinetic, jumping out of planes and helicopters and doing all this, Rambo type stuff. He said, we have to understand the special forces originally began as counterintelligence. They would infiltrate areas. They would find the people who were friendly to them, the people who were hostile to them, and act accordingly, okay? He says we need to understand and get back to the idea that we're really more about counterintelligence. And that all plays together in that. Now, as we look at the record stock market, we were all told that it was doom and gloom. We were going to have a worldwide depression because of Brexit. We saw the markets take a big drop, and then within 1 week, they came back. The people who were dumping the stocks on the news bought back in and made huge profits, okay, shorting the stuff and then buying it back in as well. Now, there's a longer-term trend, and we have this story up on Infowars.com. The mystery of who is pushing stocks to an all-time high has now been solved. You'll never guess who's manipulating the economy. Okay, spoiler alert, it's the central banks, folks, the same people that have been manipulating our economy for 100 years, okay? They have an infinite number of ways that they can manipulate our economy. They have some real overt ways that they do it with interest rates, with printing money and that sort of thing. I remember having a discussion. A friend of mine had a brother who was a branch manager at a bank. Of course, they give branch managers the title of vice president. But he was a branch manager, and I said something about the Federal Reserve. I was always one of these rude guys that would bring up politics in a social setting. That's why I don't go to parties too much. Okay, so I started talking about the Federal Reserve at a party, believe it or not. And he says, the Federal Reserve doesn't have any control over our economy. And I was just speechless. I really was. I didn't really know where to start with this guy. He said, all we do is we send the stuff to them and they clear the checks. And I said, well, you do understand that they set interest rates. You don't understand that interest rates affect the economy, don't you? You do understand that, and of course, this is a little bit more involved, and he'd need a little bit of economics training, but he would understand that the supply of money does affect the economy. Don't you understand that? And, we never did get to the part where it was a private corporation. But what is behind the surge in global stocks? Well, here's the bottom line. A surge in net global central bank asset purchases have driven the stock markets, have been the highest since 2013. Citibank's economist Matt King showed this with a detailed analysis, and you can see that at Infowars.com. Yeah, what is causing the surge in the stock market? It's policy from the central banks to buy these stocks. People aren't buying the stocks because they're feeling good about the economy, because things are clicking along. No, it's an artificial bubble technique. They say the underlying drivers are an acceleration in the pace of the European Central Bank and the Bank of Japan's purchases. They say this is a policy-induced rally. Yeah, it's a head fake, folks. A policy-induced rally. That's a great term. Another story here. GOP-led Senate is passing bills at a rate not seen in decades. This is from the Washington Times. They say the Senate is off to its best year since 1990, at least by one measure, with more than 30 of its bills having been signed into law by President Obama. Isn't that wonderful? Aren't you happy that we're creating new laws left and right? Are you feeling any freer? Are you feeling any more prosperous? I'm not. And we see what is happening, right? These are bills that Obama feels real good about. You understand the reason they're passing so many bills is because there's no difference in the agenda of the establishment Republicans and Obama and the establishment Democrats. That's why when we say that all of this is a problem that's going to go away when Obama goes away or if Hillary doesn't get in, that's simply not true, folks. It's one party that's ruling us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight. We're going to talk about what's going on with Hillary. They're still coming after her with Judicial Watch. Those guys are great. They've got some civil lawsuits that are unfolding. We're going to give you an update on that and what is happening with Hillary's imperious droids. These are people who believe that they are above the law, her minions, her droids. Before I do, I want to let you know about a new sale that we have at InfoWars. DNA Force, now 25% off at InfoWars Life. And also we have extended, and I don't know for how long, the InfoWars Select Food. That is 20 to 40% off. Of course, DNA Force is basically, its main key ingredient is the bio-PQQ compound. There's 175 clinical studies that have looked at its effectiveness. You can look for those studies yourself, and of course you can research it at InfoWarsLife.com as well as on the internet. But of course that's not all it has. It has things like CoQ10. It has digestive enzymes, trans-resveratrol, many other things that have a very long history of research, and you can find those things in a lot of different formats because they are very effective supplements. But this